Hey, welcome back. It's always an exciting time of the year for me because they are doing the first cutting of the hay. So early June here, getting into the first cutting of the season. Always a fun time for me because I grew up in northern Iowa working on farms, baling a lot of hay, spent a lot of time in hay barns, unloading hay racks on the back of hay racks out in the fields when we used to use the smaller balers and do the smaller square bales. Of course, nowadays they do the large round bales or the large square bales primarily. Kind of hard to see, but I'll zoom in here a little bit. So yeah, it's always fun this time of year for me to see how things are progressing, see what kind of yields they're getting. This is the west pasture here. We've got probably somewhere between 35 and 40 acres in hay production. So yeah, just a fun time of year to get outside and see how things are progressing on the hay front. Usually the first cutting is the most abundant in terms of the yield, depending on the rains that we get, but historically speaking that's usually the case. The first cutting is the best in terms of the number of round bales they'll get, but yeah, it just also depends on how much they fertilize, how much they try to control the weeds and so forth. We've got some spots on the property where there's just a lot of weeds kind of in the center of the property and stuff like that. So sometimes they cut it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's hard for them to get their equipment in certain areas of the property as well, which is why the whole property is not in hay production. Just sometimes they can't get the whole the tractor, the baler, the equipment down there on the slopes. The slopes are kind of hard to work on and stuff like that. So, but anyway, always a fun time of year for someone like me who spent a lot of time baling hay the manual way. I sound like the proverbial old man. Nowadays they don't really know pain or don't know what it's like until they've spent 10 or 12 hours in a hay barn when it's 90 plus degrees. And again, I sound like the old man, but I'm kind of getting to be the old man, so the shoe fit. Anyway, I'll try to get you an update when they get over to the other sides of the property. We've got some work to do over there, some tree maintenance, and so we'll get on that, and we'll see you soon. So I showed the northwest pasture where they baled the hay in that section, so now I just want to show a little bit of the middle section where they cut the hay about 2 days after they did the northwest pasture. This pasture here is, as you can see, quite a bit uneven, and it doesn't have the best quality hay, you might say. It's decent. There's a lot of weeds and stuff in here, but as I mentioned in the other video, I didn't know if they were going to cut this. I thought they would, but you never know. It's really kind of a judgment call based on what they think they can get in terms of yields. The grass was definitely tall, but again, it is weedy and it is very uneven. And so that's one thing I wanted to highlight here in terms of trees, actually connecting this to the overall mission, conservation and tree planting. This area is also very low and it's very wet. You can kind of hear it if you listen closely. I don't think I'm geographically close enough, but you can hear water moving through this tree line here. It's kind of our creek area that runs diagonally through the acreage. And this also kind of funnels down that way towards the creek. Slopes down there pretty good. Anyway, this ground around here is very uneven, very choppy, very wet. We've tried to, if you were going to do any sort of like row cropping or something out there with this land, it would need a ton of work. You would actually probably need to come in here with tile. And you need to tile this and get it properly drained, and then you need to, here's a good idea here, just how much difference there is in the slopes. You'd need to do a lot of grading because there's just like holes, big holes. You walk in here, you drop down about 3 or 4 inches in one spot, you drop down 6 inches in another spot. So this is definitely not row crop ground. to my knowledge, it's never been row crop ground. Obviously it's been hay ground and stuff like that. There's some clay over there in that region. It's my understanding from the previous owner that his dad back in the 60s maybe cut some clay out of this part of the property. So there's actually like a big bowl back behind, kind of closer to the tree line there. Anyway, getting back to the trees, since it is so wet in this area, we've done a couple of things. We've planted a weeping willow right here smack dab in this super wet area. This is like I'm sinking down as we speak. Okay. We planted this one last year, weeping willows. I'll do a deeper profile on that later on in the future. Try not to fall over here. Like I said, very uneven. But the weeping willow does great in an environment like this. And the thing that, you know, weeping willows kind of get a knock because they can be really messy. You know, the branches hang low to the ground, they drop off. It's hard to mow around, it's hard to maintain like a clean area sometimes around a weeping willow, depending on what's going on. But this is a perfect spot for it because I don't care if it drops any branches. What I want is for a beautiful tree, which I think weeping willows are beautiful trees, and I want it to soak up as much water as possible. So we planted one there. We planted another one this year over here, and it's coming along pretty nicely. Checked on it yesterday. And so gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the things you can do with different varieties of trees to help with excess moisture. Another thing that we did several years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I have to check the exact date, is there's obviously dozen plus types of oak trees, and so they have one called a swamp oak. And so what you see here in these white tubes are swamp oaks. And so we planted 6 or 8 of them. There's 3 on that side, 4 or 5 on this side, and they're doing really well. So this one here is called a swamp oak. So a little bit different structure, but you can tell it's definitely an oak. Anyway, I'll do a deeper dive on a swamp oak. Sometimes they call them a swamp white oak. But again, this is sort of along the creek area. So I mentioned in a previous video when I did the serviceberry highlight and deep dive that we planted those serviceberries over there in that region to help with that steep erosion by the cliff over there. But we also then took and planted a few tulip trees in the middle there. Those ones are tulip trees. Again, I'll do a deeper dive on those in a separate video. And then starting here, we've got the swamp oaks or swamp white oaks. So anyway, just an idea of different things that you can do, and the reason why it's really important to consider the area that you're going to be planting in, the soil type, the drainage, or in this case lack thereof drainage. This place, like right now my boots are wet. They're moist from stepping into this thick grass. So I think over time, as these trees get bigger, it's going to help significantly with this moisture. Again, we're not trying to row crop this or do anything like that. We'd have to do a whole bunch of different other things to make that happen. We're just wanting to help soak up some of this moisture and also plant trees, and so it's a win-win. And give you a little bit of an idea of what's possible, and also kind of highlight, you know, the different varieties that can help you depending on the different soils and the moisture levels. Okay, so last little bit here of the hay. We showed you the northwest section, kind of the larger pasture out there that they cut. Showed you the middle section where the ground is a little uneven, quite a bit uneven, and quite a bit moist. There's not great hay in that section. This is probably another really poor example. In this little section, there's a lot of weeds over here. Need to get over here with some 2,4-D or something and get these knocked down. But I'm gonna jump in the side by side here, and this is just a little section, nothing crazy, but it's on the south side of the creek area. Those tree lines that you see, kind of creek area. So we'll jump in the side by side, and I'll take you over to the what I call the southwest pasture, and kind of very corner of where they cut the rest of the hay. A lot better hay in that region. So this is where we planted some of the white pines from previous videos, if you watched any of those other ones. So kind of stuck some more trees in this area to help with erosion and fill in some of the, you can see it's pretty sparse here from derecho damage. So we tried to fill that in where we could. But yeah, cuts this section. I'm going to turn around, and then I'm going to go down a long kind of in between two fences, and then I'll come out to the very southwest side, and that'll show you kind of more hay ground where there's probably the best hay on the property. So again, here's some much better, I guess, view of some of the other hay on the property that gets cut. So quite a bit. For if you're putting all the pieces together here in terms of locations, this is where we planted that tree line, that new windbreak with the red oaks and hackberries, and then the existing line kind of moves off here to the west. So anyway, that's kind of it for the hay. We have, I don't know, like I said, somewhere between 35 and 40 acres maybe in hay production. And first cutting here in June. Not a bad view. One I showed the other day. Cows like it. Anyway, always fun for me. Like I said, grew up baling hay, grew up working on farms to some degree, and spent a lot of time in hay barns on the back of hay racks. This is all round bale type stuff. Not many people do the small squares anymore, so it's kind of a lost art, lost in time sort of thing. A lot of people that had that older equipment have since gotten rid of it in favor of the larger round bales or large square bales, which makes sense. Obviously, it's more effective and less time consuming. It doesn't take as much manual labor. But anyway, I always enjoy seeing them cut the hay and bale the hay. Hey, Iowa Tree Hugger here. Want to take a quick moment to thank you for watching the channel. Want to challenge everybody to get involved in conservation and conservation efforts. Get excited about conservation. Think about how you can get involved with planting a tree or many trees on your property, or helping somebody plant trees on their property. The more people we can get involved with conservation and conservation efforts, the better. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for watching the channel. Would love it if you would like, subscribe, and share the channel with your family and friends so we can get even more people involved in our conservation efforts. Thanks again, and I look forward to bringing you some more great content in the future.